Section 16 of Joseph in the Snow and the Clockmaker. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Tom Freya. Joseph in the Snow and the Clockmaker by Berthold Auerbach. Translated by Grace Jane Wallace. Chapter 16. Asleep and Awake Again in the Forest Mill. Ashbel had been sent by the anxious parents to the eminence, where they had observed a light, to see what was going on there. Martina would not believe what Adam said. Who knows but they may have found our Joseph in the mill? And yet she wanted to go there instantly herself. But Adam persuaded her to wait at all events till Ashbel came back. At last he came. He ran as fast as he could to the spot where he had left them. But they were no longer there. "Is this whole world entirely bewitched this blessed night?" said Ashbel. Adam and Martina, however, at that moment were engaged in laying hold of the three angels. Adam shouted to them in his powerful voice to stop as they came near. The angels, however, seemed to feel such desperate alarm at any of the Rotman family, and they fairly took to their heels. "You will see that our Joseph is gone with the Christmas singers," said Martina in a hopeful tone. Adam pursued the angels, and was lucky enough to catch hold of one by the wing, but it came off in his hand. He followed them, and the flying angels were not quick enough to escape a man like Adam. He clutched one of the angels tight, and asked him about Joseph. Then he brought him to Martina, who was waiting above. But the boy was in such mortal terror that they could not get a word out of him. Above all, he refused to say who his companions were, and when he was asked if he had not met a fine tall boy 7 years old in the wood, the angel first said yes, and then no. It was impossible to make sense of what he said. In the midst of this judicial examination, Ashbel appeared. "He is there! He is there! Who is there?" "Joseph," said Ashbel, quite hoarse. "Where? Where? Where?" cried Martina, rushing up to him. "Where is he? For God's sake tell me, dead or living?" "He is sitting in the mill below, drinking mulled wine." "My child, my child!" cried Martina, in so shrill a tone that it vibrated through the valley, and running down the hill as fast ever she could. Adam could scarcely keep up with her. She rushed up the steps and dashed open the door, crying out, "Joseph! Joseph! Where is my Joseph?" "You and your Joseph may go to the devil," answered a voice. Well did she know it. It was the voice of the Rotmannen. Neither fear nor anxiety nor peril of death nor intense happiness could have overcome Martina, but this voice had such an overwhelming effect on her that with a loud scream she sank to the ground in a swoon. Even Adam, who was standing close behind her, was so terrified that he let her fall without trying to support her. "Mother! Mother!" said she. He could not utter another syllable. "Do not call her mother," said Tony. "Go away, Adam. Leave us. I will raise Martina myself. But first give me that warm mulled wine, and sprinkle some drops of snow water from your cloak on her face. So she breathes." "Capital," said the old Rotmannen, with a harsh laugh. "If the whole world go crazy, I won't. If they all fall down dead around me, like so many cockchafers, I will still say no." Spidell Rotman, however, instead of replying to his wife, went up to Martina, saying, "Come, Martina, try to be composed and to command your feelings. There, I have lifted you up. Sit down here." "My Joseph! Where is my Joseph?" "In the warm stable below, sound asleep," said Tony. "Let him sleep on quietly. Your father is with him. We laid him in warm, dry hay, and I'll tell you what we will do. We will carry him upstairs immediately and lay him in my bed, in the next room. You can go down to fetch him. Adam, you need not be afraid about your Martina. Go at once, and I will stay with her." "And I," said Spidell Rotman. Adam went down to the stable and carried the child upstairs to bed. But Schilder David was sleeping so soundly that he did not choose to wake him. The child, too, continued fast asleep, even when he took him in his arms. The father stroked the child's head fondly, and then his hand once more hung down by his side. Martina was now brought gently into the room. She bent over Joseph quietly and listened to his breathing. "Lie down beside the child on my bed," said the forest miller's Tony to Martina, who looked at the girl in surprise, while Tony added, "You may be very glad that matters have taken this turn. Your Adam and I were forced into a betrothal. He disliked it quite as much as I did, and your Adam is good and true. He never spoke one word to me except about you, and though we were bride and bridegroom, yet we never kissed each other once." "Then I will give you a kiss," said Martina, starting up and embracing Tony. "I wish I had my cheeks between the two," said Ashbeal to Adam, and then addressing the two women, "You are both very nice girls, I must say. Come, Tony, your best plan is to take me. Will you have me? I see you won't, but I'll give you a wedding present, whoever you marry, all the same." "Where is my father?" interrupted Martina. "Still sleeping in the hay. Good heavens! When he awakes and no longer finds the child by his side, he will go out of his senses. Don't be uneasy. I will go to the stable and stay there with him till he awakes," answered Tony. But Ashbeal detained her by asking for something to drink, before he set out as quick as he could for the Reitersburg, where the men were still keeping watch. Tony quickly poured him out a glass of hot wine. The betrothal wine had been tasted by strange guests today. All was again quiet in the mill. Joseph was asleep, and Adam and Martina watching by his bedside. Schilder David was asleep stretched on the hay, and Tony seated near him. And in the room above the forest miller was asleep. The Rotmannen tried to wake him, for she wanted the help of a man, but the forest miller made no sound, and the Rotmannen cursed the flour sack lying there motionless, while the whole house was in an uproar. Just as the Rotmannen returned into the room, she cried out, "What's the matter? Is the world come to an end today?" For the hills echoed with the report of guns, and every valley and rock resounded with joyful cries, so that little Joseph himself was awakened by the noise, and starting up in bed called out, "Father!" "I am here," answered Adam. The shots were repeated, and now the whole party drew near, amid the sound of horns, the ringing of bells, the cracking of whips, and the barking of dogs. "You called on the devil to come. Do you hear? He is coming." "Give your consent while it is yet time," said Spidell Rotman, in the hope of softening his wife's heart. "If the devil comes, I shall be very happy to see him. I should rather like to have a talk with him," answered the Rotmannen. "You are all fools. If you choose to truckle to others, do so. But a woman of spirit never gives in, nor will I. Never. I would rather die." The hobgoblin troop came nearer and nearer, and at last drew up at the mill. They did not come in, however, for in the stable was heard a woman's cry for help, and the wild groans and lamentations of a man's voice. Schilder David had woke up, and could not find the child, and now he was rummaging among the hay, seeking for him, and loudly lamenting, refusing to listen to Tony, indeed, threatening to strangle her on the spot if she did not instantly restore the child. Edward hurried into the stable, and Tony ran up to him, calling out, "Help! Help!" Schilder David looked somewhat formidable in the light of the lantern. When he turned round, after plunging into the hay, which had adhered in quantities to his hair, covering his face and clothes. "David, he is all right and safe," said the young farmer Edward in his pleasing voice. Shoulder David sank back into the hay. "Who is that stranger?" said Tony to Haspiel. "The brother of our pastoran." "Sir, began Tony. "Do tell David that his grandson is in my room, and Adam and Martina beside him. Pray say this to him, for he won't attend to me. He won't listen to a word I tell him. For God's sake help me. You are the brother of our pastoran, and no doubt you are a good man, and I thought so when I saw you once before today. Help the old man to rise." Shoulder David, who was now sitting in the hay, stretched out his hand to Tony, saying, "You are right, forgive me, and help me up." Tony and Edward each gave him a hand, and when Shoulder David was once more on his feet, he said, "You are two excellent people." Edward supported David on his left arm and offered his right hand to Tony. He scarcely knew why, and she gave him her hand. She scarcely knew why, but they clasped each other's hands close. "I think I can now quite well walk alone," said Shoulder David, and the two other freed him from all the hay clinging to his clothes, and went with him upstairs. Martina gave up Joseph to his grandfather, but the meeting with her father was cut short by their all going to the next room together, where Haspiel was heard laughing merrily. He proposed to play the part of an evil spirit, and in that way to convert the Rotmannen. He thought this would be the best way to manage her. When Joseph came into the room holding his grandfather's hand, Tony said, "You had better not be here just now," and she took him back into the room on the other side of the entrance. "This is the brother of our pastoran," said she to the Rotmannen, as she was leaving the room, presenting Edward to her. The latter now spoke in a very urgent manner to the Rotmannen, who gave him no answer, but fixed her bright staring eyes on him. "It is time to go to church," said Rotman, and the whole of those present left the room. As they all assembled in front of the house, a voice was heard in the room above, shouting, "Long live the Rotmannen! She has given her consent." It was Haspiel's voice, who ran triumphantly downstairs, all shouting "Vivat!" again and again, and the horns sounded merrily, and the bells rung, and the dogs barked. A voice screamed something vociferously from the window, but not a word was heard. Amid singing and sounds of horns, they all went through the wood to the village. Tony walked beside Martina. On the top of the hill, she said, "I must now go back. I should like to go to church with you, and to stay with you, but, though I don't know why, I feel a kind of nervous uneasiness, because my father never woke up during all the commotion in the house. I have not been so dutiful as I ought, in not having gone to see about him. Good night, Joseph," said she, shaking hands with him kindly. "Good night to all." She passed Edward without giving him her hand before all the people, though they both would fain have shook hands again. "Good night," said Edward in a whisper, and she answered in a low tone, "Good night." Haspiel shouted a loud "Vivat!" in her honor, as she left them to go to the mill, and all present joined in it. Adam was carrying Joseph in his arms, who was dressed in his new clothes and his new boots, but at last the father was obliged to let him walk along beside David, who insisted on having him. On the hill above the village, Haspiel called out, with a last effort of his hoarse voice, "Stop! Stop!" Here still lay the wolf in the field into which Adam had flung him. Adam took the child close to the dead animal and said, "Look, I killed this wolf with my cudgel." No scolding, however, nor persuasions, would induce Joseph to touch the wolf. He was so frightened. "It's lucky for you that you are now to be under the rule of a father," said Adam, "or you would not have proved a true Rotman." He led his son by the right hand and dragged the wolf after him with his left. And thus they all went along together till they arrived at Childer David's house. End of section 16.